Hey there, Ray Fernandez from Bridge Marina. Thanks for watching already. Here in beautiful Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey, it is winter time here, but still a beautiful place in the winter. And we are in upstate New Jersey, about an hour out of New York. Bridge Marina, we are an all-inclusive sort of marine service company where we do education, training, rentals, boating club, boat sales, service, boat storage, as well as we run marinas. And I'm out here today to chat about like getting into boating. This is a time of year that we get tons of calls and interest about, how to get out on the water in the summer. And probably one of the things that folks need to realize is, it takes a little bit of runway to get into boating if you are brand new. And, so that means some education, maybe some training, and then figure out what kind of boating is best for you. So we're doing a little live stream today, testing out a new platform and, trying to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, hey, feel free to just put them in. And I'll try to respond to whichever ones I can. We're today on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn. So we're on a lot of different places wherever you are. I appreciate you watching. And just, shoot me some questions. If you have anything about boating, even about Lake Hopatcong, I'm glad to answer them. I want to start off with a weird question I got last night from Joe Carrazza. I want to throw that out. Joe Carrazza asked a weird question last night of what do you do when you have to go to the bathroom on a boat? I mean, very simple, but that's the kind of questions we get. And Joe, best thing to do is try to use the restroom before you go out. That'd probably be the most responsible thing to do. The next thing is a lot of boats do have a bathroom or a head on them. It just depends on the type of boat. I always remind folks, though, if a boat has a bathroom or a head on it, just remember somebody has to clean that up. So whoever's managing that, it's a job. So something to keep in mind, Joe, if you're going to use a restroom on somebody else's boat is somebody's got to clean it. Might be you. I don't know. That's the kind of questions we get at Bridge Marina. Along with, how do I get my boating certificate or how do I get out in the water? And these are all things that we help with. Probably first and foremost, people need to think about is getting a boating safety certificate. It's like probably that number one thing you got to think about. Now here in New Jersey, it's called New Jersey Boating Safety Certificate. It's required if you want to operate a boat on Lake Hopatcong or on tidal water. Not all states have it, but most do have some form of it. And even if you happen to live in a state that doesn't, like Utah, I don't think requires one. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure Utah doesn't. Nevertheless, if you do live in a state like that, there still is an opportunity for you to get a boating safety certificate, either from a neighboring state or there's some free ones online. But what it really is sort of an opportunity from a book standpoint to read through, understand, have some interaction about boating between safety, regulations, parts of a boat, parts of an engine. So you have some fundamentals before you ever got behind the wheel. Think of it like when you got your car driver's license, or like, the practical tests you took. So that's your boating safety certificate. And the neat thing about it is when you get it in your home state, you usually only have to get it once and it's good for the rest of your life. So it really is a good investment of, whether it be 3, 4, 6, or 8 hours. It's a good way to spend some time so you have that education that you get to have for the rest of your life. Now, the only challenge with that education is it's in a book or it's on a video. So the next thing I always suggest for folks is get some hands-on training. Whether it's from a company like us at Bridge Marina, a really good friend that really knows how to drive a boat. Hopefully they are safe and understand like all the right mechanics of driving a boat, or a captain somewhere, somebody that has some knowledge. But hands-on training really makes the process of boating way better. From a safety perspective, for sure, because, if you know what you're doing, you're going to be way safer. But I'll be honest, probably the best part about it, besides the safety, is if you know what you're doing with a boat, you just feel better. You feel more comfortable. You're more willing to go out in the water. You're more willing to spend more time. You feel more confident and better when you're driving friends and family around. And so it's like, it's a safety thing. And it's a comfort or peace of mind thing for you. So training really is a great second step when you're getting into boating. It's like hands-on, behind the wheel training with somebody who knows what they're doing. We got a whole bunch of processes here. There's probably a couple other providers out there that might do similar, but it's something you want to think about. And then, of course, the next thing you get into is, do I want to own a boat? Do I want to rent a boat? Do I want to join a boating club? I'll talk about that if you don't know about that. Or do I just want to go out on a friend's boat? I don't know, whichever one's the best for you. You want to think about like what your lifestyle is, how often you're going to use it, what do you want to do, where do you want to go? Because each one of them has different responsibilities and different costs. So, friend's boat's pretty easy. Right? Find a friend who's got a nice boat and hop on his. And it's a great way to get your feet wet and learn about it or talk to them about their experiences with it. Owning a boat's a great thing, but I really suggest you do a lot of research before you jump into it. Probably one of the biggest foes of boat ownership is, um, folks get excited about being in boating. They go out and buy a boat, but they haven't done any research. They haven't done any education, and now they own that boat. And if you don't know what you're getting into, that boat ownership could be a challenge between not knowing how to operate it, not knowing how to take care of it, not knowing where to put it, and then, of course, all the associated costs that come with it. That's probably the reason folks say the two best days of boat ownership, the day you buy it and the day you sell it, because probably too many boat owners and too many retailers just let people jump into boating too quick without really understanding it. And then, of course, once that burden gets too heavy and it gets too expensive or it becomes too challenging or you didn't use it enough, it's always great when you get rid of it. We really work here, and one of my major goals with new boaters or boaters in general is to get them to really understand the different types of boating access there are, different types of boats, really understand what fits them best today in their life today. Because you can't plan for the rest of your life. Life changes. You have kids go away. You change jobs. You're going to travel. So like, what's the best for you this year or next year? Like, try to plan it out a little bit and choose a boating service that fits you. That is, whether friend's boat, rental boat, boating club, owning a boat. What is right for you in the near term future? Because throughout your lifestyle, things change. I always like to say when somebody's younger and they got a lot of free time, hey, maybe owning a boat's a great thing for them. To get a little older, and maybe they're busy with work and such, or a young family, and maybe just a friend boat or renting is the right thing. But then once you build a family, have a little more time maybe, and you want to kind of get out with everybody together, a boating club might be perfect because you don't have a lot of time, but you got enough time to use the boat, but you don't want the hassle. And again, maybe when you're older and you're retiring, owning a boat might be a good thing for you too, because you have more time and freedom to really get a lot of use out of it. Now, that could change based on every human, based on where they are in life, but the reminder is what type of boat you are is going to change. And we are thoroughly aware of that here at Bridge Marina, which is why we offer all the services. So it kind of gives people different things to get into based on what part of their lifestyle or what part of their life they're in. And that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I could probably give today in this whole thing, besides how beautiful the lake is in the winter, is try to figure out what's the right service for you or the right type of boater, depending on where you are in your life. Okay? So nevertheless, Ray Fernandez here, Bridge Marina Lake and Patcong. If you have any more questions besides Joe's from yesterday, I got a question. Shoot.
Yes, from Chris 1107. She is from Ontario, Canada. What is the best hands-on training?
Gotcha. So this is from Canada. Thank you, Ontario, Canada. What's the best hands-on training? It depends on where you're at. I'm not sure of all the providers in Canada, but a captain is a really good training opportunity if you don't have I want to say a boating school nearby or someone that really is into boating training, because knowing how to drive a boat and how to train somebody to drive a boat are actually two different things. So I might say look up Boat US, and I know you're in Canada, and see if they have any providers that are up there. They do an on-order training program through Boat US that we're part of, and they sometimes will have a good local access for you. Probably going to be a little harder in Canada. I apologize for not knowing Canada all that well. But I'd look for somebody that actually does boat training, like a captain that offers that as a service. Have some questions with them or her and ask them, like, what's their process? How do they do the training? Do they have a system to do it? Do they have certain mechanics on how to do it? Because over the last probably 20 years, between what we've done as well as working with organizations like Boat US and NASBA, there are really some fundamentals on how to shift, how to steer, how to manage a boat that it's kind of like, shoot and layup. Once you know the right fundamentals, it gets a lot easier. So try to find somebody that really knows what they're doing is your best bet. Second best, we just try to find a nice captain or somebody else that's a good patient trainer to help you figure out how to boat. Worst case, and this might be a selfish plug, take a look at a lot of the content that Bridge Marina does, and you'll see loads of training videos that we've done that gives you a good feel for what it's like to try to train on a boat and what some of those fundamentals are. But great question. I really appreciate it. So thanks for the question. If anyone would pop up, we'll answer them too. Again, Ray Fernandez, we're here in beautiful upstate New Jersey. We are about an hour out of Manhattan, northwestern New Jersey. And I say upstate New Jersey because this isn't what most folks think about when they look at New Jersey. We are in a mountainous area, sort of a glacial lake here. And it's maybe not glacial in color, but a glaciers formed this area, thousands of years ago. And nevertheless, it's pretty neat up here. We are frozen for the winter. It's been frozen for quite some time. A lot of snow up here, but we also know March is coming, and in 30 days this will be all water again, and there'll probably be boats in there again. And this is the time to get into boating, and that's what we're talking about today. So if you have any questions, throw them out there. Or tell me where you're from. That's always kind of cool. We're streaming on a new service today, so I appreciate your patience. We're on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And it looks like I got a question. What do we got there, Gus?
Yeah. So this one is we are a family of four. What is the kind of boat is the best fit for us?
Family of four, the best boat. So, tough question. Your family of four, what's the best boat for you? I'm going to ask you a couple questions and you can think about this. So when folks are trying to figure out like what's the best boat for them, or I'm going to say what's the best boating service for you, I like to think about it like how often are you going to go boating? Is it once a week, once a month, 20 times a week, or 20 times a month? Like, understand how often you're going to go out. Now, is four the number you're taking out most of the time, or is it, your family of four plus another family of four? Like, try to figure out what that exact number is. And then what kind of, and by the way, when I say exact number, it's how many people on a regular basis. If it's just four most of the time, buy a boat that fits four-ish. We'll talk about that in a second. But then what kind of water are you going out? Is it big water? Like, is it a smaller lake? Like Lake Apacong is relatively small in the scheme of lakes. But if you're going out and make Lake Mead, way different lake than Lake Hopatcong. You're going out in the bay, different area, ocean, different. So know the kind of waters you're getting into. So you can kind of figure out what kind of boat you need to actually be safe and comfortable on that water body. I go next is like, what are you doing? Is that family of four into water sports? Are they just hanging out on the water? Do they like to adventure to get in different things? Because that too is going to change the type of boat that you want to get. Are you going to keep it in a marina? Or are you going to trailer it back and forth? And then, of course, if you're trailering it back and forth, what size tow vehicle do you have? Because, that may change the size of boat you get. Because usually around 5,000 pounds of, gross weight in your trailer and boat, you get from an SUV to now I need a full-size truck. And, now you want to get into boating and you want to get to a big boat, you may need to go buy a full-size truck to trailer it. So I appreciate the simple question. I'm sorry if it's a complicated answer, but kind of is. So I'd say, ask yourself a bunch of questions, see what it fits for you, and then when after you get through those questions, go, hey, what kind of budget do I have? Am I willing to spend $100,000 to acquire it, or do I only have a budget of $5,000 a year? Like, what is your budget? And once you know all that, and you're welcome to email us or DM us, we'll try to help you with that. Once you know all that, you're able to kind of narrow down what fits you. And by the way, sometimes someone's like, hey, I just want to get into boating with a family of four, but I'm only going to go out 3-4 times a year. Well, you really want to consider a rental as a great thing. Or if you're like, hey, I want to go out, 3 or 4 times a month, you might want to consider a boating club, maybe even owning, depends on your budget. Or you may say, hey, I live near the water, I am going out all the time. Well, then we want to talk about owning a boat for sure. But it just might change based on who you are and what you're trying to do and all those different sort of questions I asked a minute ago. But I appreciate the question. We get it all the time. I wish it were a simple answer. But once we get a lot of that information about you and what you're trying to do, it then becomes a pretty simple answer. And I'm glad to help you out with that. If you want to, you can email me. It's just ray@bridgemarina.com. Again, ray@bridgemarina.com. We'd be glad to try to give you a hand. And if there's any other questions, throw them out there. Again, we're monitoring a couple different sites right this second, so I apologize if we miss anyone. This is a new kind of way we're trying to stream today, so I'm trying to figure that out too. But for those who just popped in, I am Ray Fernandez. I'm from Bridge Marina here in beautiful Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey. And, the other thing I haven't said is we also have a location down in the Highlands, New Jersey, or on Sandy Hook Bay, just across from Manhattan on tidal water, or on salt water, which is pretty cool too. And they are actually not frozen down there finally. They broke up last week. But we're chatting today about, I guess getting into boating because it's winter time. So if you are thinking about boating this season, believe it or not, January, February, March is really the best time to get in, because if you need to get some boater education or boat training or set up all your services and or boat for the summer, you're gonna need a little bit of runway if you want to take advantage of the full season. So for those of you that are just joining us and thinking about getting into boating, that's kind of what I'm trying to talk about here today. Ask any questions you want. Glad to answer them. Another one I got yesterday, and again, yesterday happened to be an event with some older friends, and the number one question kept popping up was like, Ray, I want to get into boating, but I don't have a boater certificate. How do I get it? And the easiest thing is go onto your state Marine Police website, and usually they'll have a directory there. We do them here at Bridge Marina for New Jersey. Pretty easy course. Takes a couple hours out of your life, but once you take that, you're good for life. You have for the rest of your life. Gus, you got a question? Oops, sorry. The question is, they're in Nova Scotia, Canada. Any tips on boating in the lakes, especially the higher tides around the Bay of Fundy? Okay. And when at risk and where they can rise and fall by 40 feet or more. So again, tell you about that. The question here is, I guess somebody's in Nova Scotia, Bay of Fundy, never been there, but big tides. They mentioned 40-foot tides. I don't know if they're that big, but big tides. So as you get closer to the North Pole or further away from the equator, the tides do get larger every day, or the tide changes get larger every day. Here in New Jersey, where we are, we get like a 3 to 5 foot tide, which is relatively significant. I don't have experience with big tides. I've done some boating down in the Keys and stuff where really small tides. But probably the biggest thing you run across with all this is when that tide comes in or comes out. When it floods into an area or ebbs out, is that movement of water, like the flooding of the water or the removal of the water, creates some tidal currents, or the water speeds up. So that's probably the biggest thing you really got to watch when you're in some place with a large tide, is the water is always moving to some extent. And when it funnels or gets constricted or restricted into a small area, that water flow goes very fast. So it's not uncommon if you're in a place with with large tides, that during the tide swings, you get really fast currents. So again, never been in Nova Scotia, but I have seen some video and talked to some folks up there. And in some of their constricted waterways, like it can be like a raging river when the tide's going in and out. And I'd say here in New Jersey, in our location down in Highlands, it happens to have a very fast tide because it's like a big tidal estuary. So like imagine a big sort of like a delta for a river, but a 5 foot tide floods into that area every 6 hours. I guess every 12, but it floods in, and when it does, it pushes a lot of water inland, and as it does, it moves very fast, and it creates rapids in spots. And then of course, when it drains out and has the river flow behind it, it goes even faster. And you can get tides, tidal current speeds of 6-7 knots sometimes, which is pretty quick. If you think about it. The challenge when you're in a place with tide and there's currents, like it's moving pretty fast. Like this is probably 5-6 knots, and so like that is pretty quick for that boat to be moving when you're not doing anything. You could be in neutral gear. You stop the boat someplace and it doesn't stop. It's gonna flow away very quickly. So I'd say the biggest thing if you're in those areas is get some practice, see a trainer. Try not to go through constricted or restricted areas when that tidal change is big, because you can get yourself in trouble. And the waves can get way bigger and the currents way stronger than you might think. So great question, by the way. That was a new one. I haven't seen that one yet. Either way, do I have another question?
Yeah, we have a hello from Greenland.
Oh, cool. Greenland, get out of here.
And also,
hello, Greenland. Kind of looks like Greenland, right?
Ice boats on the lake.
Ice boats on a lake, yeah. I don't have a lot of experience with ice boats on a lake, but we do have them here on Lake Apatcong. And again, we do have them down in the Highlands area. Red Bank is a very popular ice boating area. I've never ice boated, believe it or not. It's been on my list the last few years. But it is pretty neat sport. Folks do it out. It's sailing on the ice. I've seen them. I've played with them a little bit. Just haven't gotten to go do it myself. But pretty neat sport. They do it here on Lake Apatcong. Our challenge often is, once we get snow on the ice, it kind of makes it challenging for ice boaters, or so I'm told, because the ice gets rough, and or with the snow on it, it's not really passable with an ice boat because they run on little like skates. So I appreciate the question. It looks really cool. I almost bought one 2 years ago. I've got a family. I've got some teenage girls, and I'm relatively busy in the winter between them and stuff. So I would not be a good ice boat owner because I don't think I'd find the time. And there's no ice boat rentals or ice boat clubs where I can just borrow one. So so I'm not an ice boater yet. But I would like to do it because I do enjoy sailing, and I kind of miss that in the winter of not being able to sail. So I think it'd be pretty cool. But I appreciate the question. It's probably something I'm going to try to pick up in the next year or three because it continues to intrigue me. Anyway, I don't do much ice boating here at Bridge Marina, so I can't talk to it much. But we do a lot of other recreational boats here. I see we got another question.
Someone asking about renting a boat this summer.
Renting a boat this
What
summer.
they need.
Okay, cool. And we get that question a lot. Again, Ray Fernandez, Bridge Marina here in beautiful upstate New Jersey at Lake Opatcong. We do rent boats, and we get a lot of calls of, what do I need to rent a boat? Because you see one of our ads, you see, the water, and you want to just get out and rent a boat. And the challenge is, there's a little bit of a runway to learn how to rent a boat and how to get out on the water. So for us, you do need a New Jersey boater certificate to rent a boat with us. It is a relatively easy course, takes about 6-8 hours of your life. But once you take that boating safety certificate, you keep that for the rest of your life. And like I said earlier, it really teaches you all the book fundamentals of boating, between safety, regulations, some how-to stuff, how boats work, different parts of a boat. Again, some etiquette and things like that. It's a really good foundation for learning to get on the water. On top of that, there is no replacement for actually hands-on training, whether it be, with someone like Bridge Marina, or maybe a friend that's a good boater, or a captain or somebody. But that hands-on part of operating a boat is really important. So I really suggest, if you're getting into boating, you're thinking about doing a rental, get some training. And that's not like me just being a worrywart or a safety guy. It is from an experience perspective. I do know almost every boater I've ever trained or brought into boating, like at first everyone's a little apprehensive about getting some hands-on training. Like, I don't need it, I don't want it, especially guys, by the way. But at the end of the day, once they get some training, you can literally watch folks' comfort level, their enjoyment, their success. Overall boating just gets way better with some training. So certainly something you should think about. If you have any questions, reach out to us. You can DM us here. You can email me. You can call me. My email is ray@bridgemarina.com. Reach out to us, 973-663-1976. We're glad to help. And I appreciate you guys watching today. We're wrapping up. Any more questions?
We have one more question from
Shoot.
William on YouTube. He said, I have a boater safety certificate. He'd like to know how much it is to rent a boat.
Cool. William on YouTube. Thanks for the question, William. So it depends on where you are. If you're renting here in Lake Opatcong, your rates are probably going to run anywhere from $200 to $1,000, depending on time of day, or day of week, I guess I should say. When you go, I see rates kind of run all over the place, but probably expecting that $500 to $1,000 for a day, depending on where you are in the U.S. and what kind of boat you're getting, size, scope, things like that. I'm glad to hear you got your boating safety certificate. I really hope you consider getting some training, or if you do rent a smaller boat, go out on a slower day. But just be careful, your first time out there, if you don't have any experience, or try to find a place, like us, that gives some training before you get out in the water. You'll have a lot better time. Thank you very much for the question about rental rates. If you want, you can hop on our website too, and you can see them as well. I imagine AI would do too. Anyway, I got to go. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a great day. We are doing a boating show tomorrow in this beautiful weather. So if you're around, you want to come out to Lake Opatcong tomorrow afternoon, we have a little boating show here. Come on down. We're going to be doing some lives tomorrow too, just like this, if this software works well.